Consuelo Mathletes. Okay, beginning of a new kind of like mini chapter. It's going to be very short, just going to be 3 days. First day is distance, midpoint, and circles. Second day is going to be trig without the calculator, and third is trig with the calculator. Okay, so first of all, distance and midpoint formulas. What we're doing is finding the distance, first of all, the distance, and then we'll do the midpoint. Distance and midpoint between two given points. Doesn't matter what the points are. Now, thing I want to mention is this. This right here is the distance formula. You can memorize it if you want, and you do need to have it memorized, but there's a much easier way to memorize it, and that's to think of it as the Pythagorean theorem. Now, why is this one? Why is the first one technically the distance formula? Because the first equation only gives you a positive answer, because the square root only gives you a positive answer. Okay, the second one, the d squared equals, gives you a positive and negative, and then you just throw out the negative because the distance can't be negative. So really just think of it like the Pythagorean theorem. Remember, the Pythagorean theorem is like c squared equals x squared plus y squared. Okay, well, in place of c, we're just putting d. So it's d squared equals x squared plus y squared, and to find x and y, you subtract the x's and subtract the y's. Okay? So anyway, here's just a simple example. So to find the distance between those 2 points, and by the way, it doesn't matter which one you consider the first point and which one you consider the second point. So you can do it from 2 comma negative 3 to negative 5 comma 1 or vice versa. Makes no difference whatsoever. Again, I'm using the equation as if it's the Pythagorean theorem because that is where it comes from. D squared equals x squared plus y squared, and to find x and y, you subtract the x's and subtract the y's. So it's just a matter of really just plugging numbers into a formula and calculating it. Okay, to find the midpoint, again, what you can do is memorize this formula right here, or if you can just realize that all you're really doing is taking the average of each coordinate. And how do you take the average? You add them up and divide by 2. So to find the average, or to find the midpoint between those 2 points, you just add up the x's, divide by 2, add up the y's, and divide by 2. And that's really all it is, okay? So this got a little bit of obliterated there. That should be negative 3/2. That's it. Okay, now there's a reason why, in addition to the fact that it's just easier, I prefer to think of the distance formula as the Pythagorean theorem, and that is because the next thing we're going to do is talk about circles. And what's the equation of a circle? It's the Pythagorean theorem, okay? So it's, if the circle has a center of 0, 0, and a radius r, it's x squared plus y squared equals r squared. And be very careful, it's r squared, not d squared, because then you're going to think it's diameter. But basically, it's just the Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus y squared equals r squared, okay? And then if the center is not 0, 0, it's just shifted in the x and y direction. So how is it here? If we have the center is h comma k, we're shifting it h in the x direction and k in the y direction. So it's just a shift of this equation. If you take this equation right here and you shift it, h comma k, you get this equation, okay? It's just easier to remember it as Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so what's the equation of a circle with center 2 comma negative 5 and diameter 12? Okay, first of all, remember the radius is 6, okay? So we have, if the center wasn't 2 comma negative 5 and the diameter was 6, it'd be x squared plus y squared equals 36, 6 squared. But what we're going to do is shift it 2 in the x direction, so it becomes x minus 2 quantity squared, and negative 5 in the y direction, so it becomes y plus 5 quantity squared, and then equals 36. So this one right here is if it wasn't shifted, but since it is shifted, that's the equation. It's that simple, okay? All right, so I'm going to get rid of this one because that is not the answer. That's just what it would be if it was unshifted. Okay, well, how do you graph? You have how do you graph x plus 1 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared equals 9? Well, there are two ways to do it. You can, I'll show you both ways. The way you would understand right now is we're going to graph a circle of radius 3. So from 0, 0, we're going to go 3 in each direction. And this is what you would get if it was just x squared plus y squared equals 9. Okay? But then what are we going to do? I'm sorry, that's wrong. I apologize. Because the 0, 0 was right there. So ignore this one. Sorry. Okay. The center is right there. So I'm going to go out 3 in each direction. And this is what you would get if you had an unshifted circle of radius 9. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each of those points and I'm going to shift it 1 to the left and 2 up. And if you shift it 1 to the left and 2 up, you get the circle that I've got drawn here, before I started drawing anything with my pen. Okay? Now, that's a perfectly good way to do it. But there's another way you can do it too, which if you like this better, it might be easier. It's not that big of a deal, though both of them are fairly simple. And it's this. Don't really look at this as a shifted circle, although that's what it is. What we're going to do is just graph the center point, which is not on the circle, but it's a guide, and then from that center, go out 3. So as opposed to graphing the circle at 0, 0, center, and then shifting it, I'm just going to have the center here at -1, 2, and then go out 3 in each direction, and then draw the circle. And again, just draw it as best you can. Either way is fine, okay? So you can either always graph the basic circle with its center at 0, 0, and then shift it, or you can just put where the center is and then measure the radius from the center. And either way is fine. Hope that helps. See you in the next video.